taking the time out to come and join Pragmatic this afternoon for this afternoon of talks. Hopefully it's, wait a second. I'm sure it'll be interesting and instructive. My name's David Savage. Jamie and David asked me to come along this afternoon and host the afternoon, try and make sure that we keep on track as the afternoon goes on and get the refreshment breaks at the right time. For those of you who don't know me, which is probably everyone, apart from a couple of people in the room, I host a podcast called Tech Talks. Got about 6,500 listeners a month, interviewed over 200 leaders. So anything that I say is generally regurgitated and stolen from other people. However, Jamie and David, I don't know whether to thank them or not, they asked me to give some opening remarks about future gazing and predicting the future, which is a fairly thankless task. And kind of when I started thinking about that topic, it kind of cast my mind back just a couple of weeks when I was on the way out to Web Summit in Lisbon. And on the way out there, I bought a copy of the Wired annual for last year, because I thought it would be quite interesting to see whether or not the predictions for the last 12 months came true. And in truth, you could have stuck this year's date on it and you wouldn't have been any the wiser. You kind of always feel that the tech industry is on the cusp of the next big thing, but it's ever so slightly out of reach. And I don't think it's just me or other organisations in this room that struggle with trying to predict what's going to happen next. You only have to look back a couple of years to Google and Google Glass and their attempts at AR and how that didn't work to see that it's difficult for the giants too. And funnily enough, out in Lisbon this year, the Google stand was entirely given over again to AR and their push for Google Lens. So I thought it would be worthwhile talking about possibly two examples of where tech as an industry might be going. First of all, from an environmental kind of side in terms of what the ecosystem looks like, and also from an individual company's point of view. And I think it's interesting that if you go back maybe 15 years, tech organisations, sure, they clustered around cities, but the innovation just kind of happened where it happened. But increasingly, the role of central government and local government in technology and how startups interrelate with that is coming into focus. So if you look at Birmingham and their strength around automotive, or you look at Belfast and cyber, you can see that cities are becoming hubs for particular clusters of community within technology. Interestingly, if you look at LA, it's not just the UK, if you look at LA, it's become a real hub for entertainment tech. So in the last year, I think 16,500 digital jobs have been created in LA, and they've got about $5 billion worth of funding into that area around that industry. And it's areas that you wouldn't necessarily have thought of off the top of your head. So trade tech is a huge opportunity for the UK. It's an industry that's currently worth about £3 billion. By 2030, it's suggested that will be around 13 billion. And the Tees Valley Mayor, Ben Houchin, is looking at how Tees Valley and Teesside can mimic the success of Rotterdam or Singapore and Dubai is to become a hub for those trade tech organisations incorporating IoT and blockchain and AI and bringing that together. It's been proven that diverse clusters of technology bring growth and investment and jobs into an area. So you can see why, at a local level in particular, cities and regions have got such an important role to play. I think it's really fascinating when you think about the fact that technology is obviously online, and we kind of think about it being borderless, that actually where you're based as an organisation and the region actually has a really strong effect on technology and how it's growing at the minute. The company that I wanted to just quickly highlight on for a second is Nominet. I don't know whether people are familiar with Nominet in the room. They're the registry. They look after the domain name .co.uk. They look after it for eBay, for Amazon, amongst others. And they started to question what their role was in the future of the internet, because people don't type in domain names. They go to search bars. And increasingly, they might not even do that. They might have Alexa at home, and they might just ask to bring back some information. So increasingly, their relationship with customers is getting more and more distant. So they kind of had to think about what their role was as an organisation. They kind of provide that thin layer of internet where it's all about reliability and exchange of data. So they started looking at how they could utilise the TV white space to provide connectivity, or autonomous vehicles, because again you've got a data exchange between other autonomous vehicles and smart cities and manufacturers and insurance organisations. But that's having a profound effect on the culture of their business, because all of a sudden someone who writes a DNS white paper isn't necessarily the type of person that they want to hire in a world where they have to go out and fight for their food. So they're having to think about, hang on a minute, let's get sales guys in, let's deploy Salesforce, let's think about entrepreneurial and commercial skills that as a business they'd never have to consider. And from a marketing point of view and their brand, that's obviously subtly changing, well, actually quite rapidly, fundamentally changing their business and their proposition to market. So you can see how the direction of technology, both from a regional or location point of view, geographical, and also the technologies themselves are changing how organizations are positioning themselves. How tech is seen more widely as well is really important. We often talk about regulation. Only 1 in 10 of us believe that tech organizations are capable of self-regulating. What's fundamentally clear is that users are going to be part of that, and giving users a seat at the table is incredibly important, especially when customers and consumers are so fluid in their choices now, and there is so much more choice available. You have to be transparent. And if you've got to be transparent, and phrases like profit with purpose are increasingly used because purpose and transparency is so important, how your brand is seen, then you've also got to be aware of the bias that you might be building into technology. So if you're future gazing and you're thinking about AI, there's plenty of examples where bias is undermining efforts within technology. So in the States, where you have white engineers, unfortunately, coding law enforcement software that doesn't recognize faces of color because it's engineered by white guys, effectively. So that's not being addressed, and that is not what is going to help the technology industry position itself and gain credibility going forward. But authenticity and transparency are opportunities. And I just wanted to finish by, this is a bit of a cheesy quote, but it does kind of, I heard it the other day. It was Liam Byrne, who's the Shadow Digital member of the Shadow Cabinet, mentioned this. And he said that tech entrepreneurs don't make history, they invent the future. It's a bit cheesy, but actually it's a really good soundbite, because that is the opportunity available for people with technology today. So with that, we'll move on to the first speaker. Actually, housekeeping, a couple of things. Tweets. There is a hashtag, PaceConf. There will be a prize for the best tweet, so please do get on Twitter and tweet as the day goes on. That's an echo dot that's up for grabs for the person who interacts as the day goes on online better, but or best of all, rather. But yes, thank you in advance to our speakers. I'm sure we'll hear from you as the day goes on, but it'd be great to hear from Dave first of all.